Imagine you need something crucial, maybe a special kind of metal for tools, or a spice that only grows on the other side of the world. Since you can't just hop on a plane, you need a system to get it. Trade is that system. In the ancient world, trade was the engine that connected different civilizations, allowing them to exchange goods and fill in the resource gaps they had. As these exchanges became more regular, long-distance trade networks naturally formed, stretching thousands of miles across continents. But trade is about more than just stuff. When a Chinese merchant meets a Roman trader, they don't just exchange silk for gold. They also exchange ideas, religious beliefs, and ways of doing things. That spreading out of ideas and cultural elements is called cultural diffusion. Think of it like dropping a splash of colorful ink into a clear glass of water. The color slowly spreads throughout the entire glass. That's what happened with language, art, and even mathematics as people traveled and traded. We can divide what was exchanged into two main types. The first is goods, the actual physical things like silver, pepper, cotton cloth, or famous Chinese silk. The second type is ideas. These are non-physical, like the concept of zero in math, a new way to build a boat, or the beliefs of a new religion. Often, the ideas traveled much easier and faster than the bulky, heavy goods, impacting civilizations long after the physical goods were gone. The most legendary of these ancient networks is the Silk Road. It wasn't one single paved road, but a complex, dangerous, and amazing network of caravan paths that connected the great civilization of China in the east with the Roman and later European world in the west. This route didn't just move products. It was the major artery for cultural exchange between the world's most powerful ancient empires. The Silk Road got its name because the most coveted item traveling westward was silk from China. It was lightweight, expensive, and a luxury item that only the richest Romans could afford. But plenty of other things moved too. China also sent porcelain and paper-making technology. In return, the West sent valuable things like gold, silver, and magnificent glasswork. Because the trip was so long and dangerous, only light, high-value luxury items made the trip profitable. Travel on the Silk Road was incredibly difficult. Merchants banded together in huge groups called caravans for safety against bandits and to share resources. The key to the entire operation was the camel, specially adapted to cross the harsh desert landscapes like the Gobi. Interestingly, most merchants didn't travel the entire 4,000 miles. Goods were usually passed along from merchant to merchant at various trading cities, like a historical relay race. One of the biggest ideas to spread along the Silk Road was the religion of Buddhism. It originated in India, but as merchants and Buddhist monks traveled east toward China and Central Asia, they carried the religion and its teachings with them. This is why you find magnificent examples of Buddhist cave temples and artwork carved right into the desert mountains of Central Asia, showing the profound power of cultural diffusion. China was ahead of the rest of the world in many inventions, and their technology diffused westward along the trade routes. The technology for making paper eventually replaced materials like expensive animal skin, parchment, for writing, completely changing how people stored and shared knowledge. Other inventions like the magnetic compass, which was essential for sea travel, also left China and made their way to the west. Beyond the land routes, the Mediterranean Sea was another bustling network. Think of it as a huge lake surrounded by some of the most powerful ancient civilizations, Egyptians, Greeks, and the Romans. These civilizations all traded heavily by sea, moving things like grain to feed their large populations, plus olive oil and wine. This maritime network made sure that even during times of war, goods and ideas were constantly circulating. The Phoenicians were incredible sailors and merchants who dominated early Mediterranean trade. Their greatest contribution wasn't a physical good, but an idea, the alphabet. Before them, many cultures used hundreds of complex symbols to write. The Phoenicians created an alphabet with only about 22 symbols, where each symbol stood for a specific sound. As they traveled, they spread this efficient system, which was then adopted and adapted by the Greeks and Romans, eventually becoming the alphabet you're reading right now. Moving south, we find the incredible trans-Saharan trade routes. Imagine an ocean of sand, the Sahara Desert. This enormous, harsh desert separated North Africa from the kingdoms of West Africa, but trade was so vital that people risked the journey anyway. Like the Silk Road, this network was only possible because of the mighty camel and the organization of large caravans moving from oasis to oasis. The trans-Saharan routes were built on a crucial exchange, gold for salt. The great kingdoms of West Africa, such as the Mali Empire, had an immense amount of gold. Meanwhile, people in West Africa desperately needed salt, which was abundant in the Sahara. Salt was essential for preserving food and was so valuable in the south that it was sometimes traded ounce for ounce with gold. This trade was a massive engine for cultural diffusion, particularly the spread of Islam. Muslim merchants from North Africa traveled south, bringing their religion and traditions with them. They didn't spread it by conquest, but through commerce. Many West African rulers saw the benefit of converting to Islam because it connected their empire to a massive trading network across North Africa and the Middle East, leading to greater wealth and power. The wealth generated by the gold-salt trade caused certain cities to boom. Timbuktu in the Mali Empire is the most famous example. It started as a simple trading post, but became one of the wealthiest and most important cities in the world. It wasn't just a place to exchange goods. It became a renowned center for Islamic scholarship and learning, full of universities and libraries holding thousands of priceless manuscripts. If we look to the southeast, the Indian Ocean maritime trade was the largest sea-based network in the world. Instead of camels, these traders relied on the predictable seasonal winds, called monsoons, to push their ships from East Africa to India and Southeast Asia. Because ships could carry massive amounts of goods, this route was perfect for trading bulkier items. What was traded here? The Indian Ocean trade was the source of some of the most luxurious and desirable goods of the ancient world. They exchanged things like precious stones, but primarily they moved spices, pepper, cloves, and cinnamon, and fine textiles like cotton cloth from India. This spread of spices drastically changed the cooking and food of almost every civilization that participated in the network. A fascinating example of diffusion along the East African coast is the creation of the Swahili language. Because traders from Arabia, India, and Africa were constantly meeting in the ports, they needed a common way to talk. Over time, they blended their languages, creating Swahili, which is mainly based on local Bantu African languages, but has many words borrowed from Arabic. It's a living example of how trade builds bridges. Trade didn't just affect what people bought, it affected what they ate. Cultural diffusion led to the introduction of new crops and farming techniques across continents. For example, things like rice and sugarcane spread from Asia to other parts of Afro-Eurasia through trade. This availability of new, calorie-rich foods improved diets and allowed many populations to grow larger and healthier. It's important to remember that not everything exchanged along the trade routes was a good thing. Unfortunately, people who traveled long distances often unknowingly carried diseases with them. The most devastating example is the bubonic plague, or the Black Death, which is thought to have traveled from Asia to Europe along the established trade routes, killing huge portions of the population in both continents. The ultimate takeaway is this: the world is connected, and it has been for thousands of years. Early trade networks were not just routes for exchanging goods like gold and silk. They were crucial pathways for cultural diffusion. They acted as the foundation for the interconnected world we live in today, proving that when cultures meet, human knowledge and development move forward faster than ever.